Good morning. My name is Karen Kong, and I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Ottawa, Canada. And welcome to my this Thursday. Normally it's this or that Thursday because I normally post two cards in my group for everybody to choose a card for me to make live on Thursday mornings. But this week is a little bit different. I didn't have time to make two cards, but I do have one card to share with you, and it's a fun fold. So this is the card we're making. It's like looks complicated, but it really isn't. It's just a matter of making the right score marks and the right cuts, and it's really not that hard. So I am going to share it with you today. If you're joining in live or on the replay, I would love it if you say hi and tell me where you're watching from. Ask me questions because it's no fun crafting by myself, and it's much more fun to have a conversation. So let me just get my computer up and running so that I can see your comments while we're crafting. And just give me a second while I get that going. And then we'll switch over to my desktop. Just a moment. There we go. All right. The computer's up and running, so just close your eyes while I remount my phone so that it can see my desk, and I'll show you my card. We're actually going to go rogue today. It's going to be a little bit scary, but this is reality crafting, right? So for those of you who've never joined me before, I call mine reality crafting because what will go wrong sometimes will go wrong, and I have to deal with it whatever happens. Today I am going to change up the colors in the paper so that I really kind of want to show you that you can take your own stash and make something beautiful from what you have already. It doesn't have to match what I'm doing exactly. Good morning, Sandra. Thanks for joining me. So I made this card using the Thoughtful Journey DSP. Okay, so from one sheet of DSP, I cut and I glued panels onto this card, and without too much waste, which is what I'm really happy about. I wasn't completely sure I loved the color selections for the card bases and the matting. I think it turned out fine, but I also wanted to try it with one other piece of DSP, which is this one, which is sort of similar but has a slightly different color palette in this sheet. So I'm going to switch it up, and I'm going to make this card on the fly. And we'll go through, the reasoning as to why, you place things where they are, but yeah, so it's gonna be rogue today. We'll see how it goes. And fingers crossed everything will go fine, but we are gonna make this card together. I'll just quickly show you my supplies today. If you're joining for the first time, I always put my supply list and my measurements in the video description, and that reminds me, I haven't updated last week's because I was away over the weekend. I'm still trying to get caught up, but I will update it soon. Okay, so let's go through what I have. So for this particular color palette, this one, I am going to switch it up. So this one used Petunia Pop and Blackberry Bliss and Misty Moonlight. And I used a little bit of wild wheat for the stamping for the background, okay? So this is still the Thoughtful Journeys DSP, but just a slightly different sheet. So in this particular layout, I actually used the back side of this particular sheet of DSP. So I just cut the pieces I needed and I flipped them over to get these ones to the ones without the flowers on it. Okay, so I looked at this piece because this is the one I want to use, and I flipped it over, and I don't think I want to use the back side of this one. I think it's too much of a contrast. So I actually found another piece of DSP in this pack that looks very similar in the color scheme. So I'm going to use this one instead. So we're going to mix and match a little bit, but it will coordinate perfectly because it is from the same pack. And I'm going to use Pretty Peacock for the card base. And I looked at the yellow here, and I know that the wild wheat is the only yellow based kind of shade of the only yellow in this pack. And sometimes you can, I mean, I play around with the colors a bit because you can find other options that kind of work. And I realized that it kind of looks like a crushed curry. And if you can see there, I think the shade matches really well. And it's really just for this little bit here. That's all I'm going to use the crushed curry for. It's just going to be a little slight pop of color. Oh, Sandra, you just got the Pretty Peacock. Yeah, I love Pretty Peacock. I've been waiting for a reason to use it. And I always go by whatever is in the DSP color set. I always follow it. And lately I hadn't been using anything with Pretty Peacock, but it is such a pretty shade. I'm really glad I can pull it out now. So that's what I'm using today. So these shades. And if you'll notice, this back piece here in the Misty Moonlight, it's just a faint bit of color, and I'm not sure I liked that it didn't match here. So I was thinking I should have used the Blackberry Bliss, but I didn't. So it occurred to me that I like the Pretty Peacock so much. I want to use the Pretty Peacock for the accordion section, the card base for the accordion section, and I didn't want a different color for this back piece. It's really just to provide more support and structure. So I'm going to keep it all Pretty Peacock. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, Sandra, I had the same thing. I had the blends first because they were retiring, and I got those first. And then I happened to score a set of a pack of cardstock from somebody who was selling it, and but then it came back, so I'm really happy. So I'm going to stick to Pretty Peacock all the way. I'm not going to vary this color, but you can. I mean, it's really up to you what you want in your color selection based on whatever DSP you're choosing, okay? The last thing is I just wanted to note was that because of the way this card opens and shuts, right? This section that pops out covers the sentiment, and this panel covers what's inside here. So when you close it, it's all white here, right? And I played with putting DSP here instead of white, and I think it was too overwhelming. And then I realized also when you go to write on the card, you don't really want to write on this section because then it's going to peek out, and it's not going to, I think it won't look as nice, the overall card front, if you were to write your message to the recipient, like in these white areas. So what I'm going to do afterwards is I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to add a blank piece of white so that whoever's using this card can write on the back, and they would just unfold it to do the writing, right? Because otherwise it'd be too bumpy. So that's the card. That's some thoughts around the card. I combined two sets. So the this DSP actually pairs well with the Expressions of Kindness kit, and that's where I got this stamp set. I also used Dainty Delight because the sentiment that I used on the front, wishing you the happiest of birthdays, doesn't really have a companion inside message. So I chose to use the Dainty Delight, which is not exactly the same, but it uses the kind of the same mix of cursive and regular font. So I think it's fine. So I am going to mix those. Plus I thought that the flowers in this set also went with the DSP. It's slightly different, but close enough that I was okay with it. So I think we should get started. I stop talking and get going. All right, so let's make some room for my paper trimmer. We're gonna cut everything that we need for this card first, okay? And I'll show you how to score it and cut it. Okay, this is always the challenge, trying to find room on my desk. It's amazing how fast all the room is taken up. I'm just going to put these aside till I need them. Let's put this over here. And I have blends markers to just color in the flowers afterwards. So let's get going. All right, so like I said, I always put the measurements in the video description afterwards, so you can just enjoy watching the video and see how the card is made and not have to rush to write this down. Okay, so I'm going to make the accordion section of this card first, and it is 5 1/4 by 11. So this is an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of paper. I'm just going to measure to 5 1/4 inches and cut that. Okay, now I'm going to rotate and I'm going to score it at 1 3/4. I'm going to have to move this out of the way eventually so I can extend the arm. Okay, so 1 3/4 is here. And I'm going to be careful not to use my cutting blade by accident. So 1 3/4, 3 1/2, and 5 1/4. And 7. So I'm just going to need to extend the arm here, and I'm going to need to move these out of the way. And that's 7 inches. All right, now I'm going to take the paper and I'm going to rotate it so that all my lines are up here and they're horizontal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slice between the score lines at 1 1/4 and 4 inches. So let me just measure that out. So 1 1/4. Okay, and I'm going to slice between the first and the third score line. Okay, so this is the first one, and I'm going to slice right between there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my cutting blade, and do you see that there is a notch on the side of the cutting blade? I don't know if you can see that. I'll show you again afterwards, but there's a notch right here, and I'm going to line it up with the scored line, and then we will score from the first score line down to the third score line. Okay, so I'm just matching up the notch here with my score line when I cut. Okay, okay, so I am just slightly off. It's okay. I'm just going to go back up and I'm going to make sure it makes it all the way up to that score line. There. All right, so now I'm going to move it over to the 4-inch mark and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Okay, so that's lined up, and I'm going to line it up down here, and let's just take a look. Okay, so again, I just missed the top just slightly. I'm just going to do a tiny bit. I can feel, there we go. All right, so now it's all the way up to the top, and we're going to take this out of the way. Oops. All right. Let's put this aside for a second, and I'm just going to cut the crushed curry square. So let me just bring this card back in so you can see. So I've cut the accordion piece, that's this Petunia pop in this card, and I'm going to cut this piece here, the squares that I need, and I'm using crushed curry. And it's going to be 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. So let me measure this, 2 1/2. By 2 1/2. Okay, and I need a white piece also that is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. Let me just see. I have a leftover piece of white here. What's the chances it's the right size? 2 and oh, this could, I can cut this one down. Okay, so this needs to be 2 1/4. 2 1/4. All right, so there's the square pieces, and I need this back piece, which is Misty Moonlight in this card, will be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So let's take this piece of Pretty Peacock, So this will be, let me just double check. This should be 5.5. I'm just gonna double check. Where did my ruler go? Oh, here. Okay, so 5.5. So I'm gonna cut 4.25. Okay. And the inside piece will be this inside white piece that I stamped on is 3.75 by 5. And it looks like I'm gonna have to get a fresh sheet. Just a second. Okay, so this is gonna be 5 inches. Three and 3/4. Okay, I think I have all my pieces ready now. So let's move this out of the way. I will cut the DSP next, but let's do the folding and such. Okay. I'm going to show you the folding. It's really easy, so it doesn't really matter which way you fold it to begin with, because you can work the fold either way. So, but I'm just going to fold it the way that I know that it needs to go. So I'm going to fold back this top piece. And this one this way. Basically going the opposite direction each time I fold. So this time I'm going to go back. And then fold this one again this way. Okay, so now it's all folded, right? All right, so, okay, let's see. So now that it's all folded, I can show you how this pops out. See, this one just pops out this way. I'm just gonna burnish that fold. Okay, so there, look how easy that was. Really not that hard to create that fun fold, right? Okay, so now we're gonna need our DSP pieces that we're going to glue on here and here and here. These are all going to be 1.5 inch wide panels. So I'm taking a 6-inch piece wide DSP, and I'm going to cut it 6 by 5. Okay, because this piece here will need to be 5 inches tall. So I'm going to cut it down to 5 inches. Okay, so make sure if you have a directional piece of DSP, meaning that there is a what's the word I'm looking for? A direction that the image has to go to be right side up, that you make this side the 6-inch side and you cut this way 5 inches. Okay, so I'm gonna take off, because this is a 6 by 6 for this particular pattern, this one that I use, this is another piece, I actually cut off a 1/2 inch off the bottom and a 1/2 inch off the top, because I didn't want to lose too much of the flowers here. I didn't want to take off like 1 inch off the top. So you just want to be aware of that when you go to cut your DSP. Okay, so this flower is quite near the top. I think we're gonna have to lose some of, we might lose a bit more than I would like, but it's not a big deal. So if I were to cut, I'm just thinking, I'm gonna keep that. Maybe I'll take like 1/4 inch. So overall, because it's 6 by 6 and I need to take off 1 inch, I'm gonna take off 1/4 inch off the top and 3/4 from the bottom. Okay. I'm gonna bring back my paper trimmer. Okay, so I said 1/4 inch off the top because I want to keep that flower. I don't want it to be too close to the top. And I want that Pretty Peacock in that top section too. So, like I said, don't want to cut off too much. Okay, so 1/4 of an inch and then 3/4 of an inch off the bottom. I'm using the measurements on this side, which is what I love about this. One of the things I love about this paper trimmer, I can cut on either side of the groove. So, okay, so 3/4 of an inch, and unfortunately we lose that tiny little flower down there. Okay, so now I need 1.5 inch wide sections. So I'm going to cut, let me just see. I'm just thinking if I cut a 1.5 inch piece here, I'm going to be cutting very close to this piece. Okay, I think it'll be okay. All right, so let's go with 1.5 inches. I'm going to cut 4 1.5 inch sections, so it'll use up the entire thing. Now, if you're using the back side, this will be perfect because you use up pretty much the entire sheet. But in my case, I'm going to grab the other DSP to use for the back side. Sorry, for the other sections that would have been the back side of this sheet. Okay, so 1.5, 1.5. 1.5. Okay, I feel like I want to move this over because I know I'm not going to be using this last 1.5 inches. I can actually, I think I'm going to actually cheat a little bit. I'm going to cut a little bit farther over so that I can get this flower into the, well, see, this is the thing with going rogue. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, trying to think on the fly. I kind of want to keep that yellow. I'm just thinking I want to put this flower on the front of the card here, right? Because I realized when I cut this one that I kind of covered up my flowers. I'm trying to plan out ahead this time that I want this flower over here. Sandra's saying don't think too hard. Not taking too long. I know. Okay, you know what? I'll just cut it at 1.5 inches and we will just deal with it. Okay. All right, so this, before I go ahead and start cutting all the other pieces into, I need 1 by 1.5 inch pieces. I'm just going to decide which pieces I'm going to keep for the long panels here. So this one for sure, I want it to go in front so that I can see that flower. Okay, and then I need a second one. So not this one because it's a lot of it's gone, but perhaps this one or this one. And then actually there's one piece in the middle here, right? There's one piece of that DSP in the middle there, and I actually trimmed this one to specifically put my flower in it. And that's what I want to do here too. So I'm just going to, I think this one would look really good here. And I will take, let's see, I want the yellow. So I'm going to keep that one and I'm going to trim this one down to place here. Okay, so I'm going to adhere those before I forget which ones I've chosen. And then we'll trim the other pieces down to size. So this is part of the thinking process that I go through. Okay, so let's take some glue and I'll get my tweezers out. And I'm going to put glue around the edges, not too close, so that I have wiggle room and it won't show the glue squishing out. And it also gives me a spot for my tweezers to hold the paper. Okay, so we're going to center this onto this panel here. And let's do the same for this piece. Oh, Sandra's saying that, sometimes when you cut panels for specific areas, sometimes it gets miscalculated. Yes, I have done that. I have absolutely done that. That's why I check so often to try and avoid those situations, but they still happen. All right. So it's not this piece, it's this piece. So this panel here is 1.5 by 2.5. So this is already a 1.5 wide piece. I just have to figure out which 2.5 inches I want. So I'm going to trim off maybe an inch off the top here. Let's see, no, not quite an inch. I want to leave some blue on top. So I'm just going to, let's see, cut off here. And then from here, I'll cut off 2.5 inches. Okay. And we'll adhere that down. You know what, I am probably going to go use this. Oh yeah, Sandra says this is why we hoard DSP. I'm so afraid of cutting it wrong and then wasting it, right? It looks so pretty and you just don't want to waste any scrap of it. Okay, but I think I'm going to break open some other hoarded Christmas DSP and make this layout again, the same card with different DSP for Christmas, because I feel like it's like, you know, it's that time of year. Everybody's working on their Christmas cards and I don't even know, I have no idea if I have enough yet. I should count. But I want to make sure I have enough because I send out quite a few. Probably not as many as other people, but I want to make sure I have enough. Okay, so now all I need are the 4 panels that go here, and those are 1-inch high panels. And you know what? Maybe I'll just use this. I wonder how many I can get. 1, 2. Not quite enough. I won't have enough to cover all 4. I don't think I want to have this like flower down here. I don't want to have it distract from the main flower panels. So I'm going to go back to using this one. Okay, so this is another sheet of DSP. I'm just going to cut a 1.5 inch panel from here. And we'll use this. Okay, so now I'm just going to cut 1-inch sections, and I need 4 of them. I think I should measure the other way. It's harder to hold like this. So I'm going to measure on this side, and then I have enough to keep the paper still. You know what, I think I want more of the yellow sections. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this last piece here so I can get this yellow section here. Okay, so let's mix and match these pieces. We'll decide which ones we want to use. So I think I will put some yellow. I'll choose the ones with the yellow on it. And this piece. I'm not trying to match these up or anything. I'm just trying to see how it might look best arranged. So Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay, so let's go with that. Okay. So this is a card, one of those cards that is good for showcasing DSP. So it's been kind of cobbled together from 2 different stamp sets and stamped images, because I didn't have any stamped images in the stamp set that came from the kit that would work for the inside. This flower is just kind of, I'm not sure what to do with it actually. So I wanted a bigger image for the inside, and that was not big enough. But I think the Dainty Delight images work well. Okay. All right. So here we have it. That's like most of the card already, right? So this is going to unfold like this. I think it looks beautiful. All right. Let's move on to creating this square panel that goes here. Okay. I actually embossed that little Blackberry Bliss piece behind there because I looked at the cross hatching in this stamp set and I had put it on my behind my sentiment, and it reminded me of something, and I suddenly realized that it kind of matches the where is it? The embossing folder from the 3D Basics. It's the cross hatching folder from the 3D Basics set, and I use that. It's just a really subtle touch. You don't have to do it. It will look great even without the embossing, but I thought it was just nice that they matched up. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to need to bring in my cut and emboss machine and make some room for that. Let's bring this piece out. And I'm actually going to, because this is diagonally oriented, and the cross hatching that I have on my card is more up and down, right? So I'm going to orient my piece of paper so that it will match the stamped bit. So I'm going to turn it so that I will end up with my cross hatching across and down rather than diagonal. Okay. Just grab this. We'll run this through. And there it go. And here's my piece I'm going to stamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my I need the blocks, and I need that little cross hatching piece. Okay, just peel it off, and let's pick it up. Okay, and we're going to use wild wheat, and it's a bit strong, like pretty dark. So I have a scrap piece you can see I've been stamping on already, And I'm just going to stamp off before I put it in my background of my sentiment. Okay, so let's ink this up. And I'm going to stamp here once, and then I will stamp here. I'm stamping more on the upper half of my square, so I'm going to leave room for the ribbon at the bottom of the sentiment. Okay. Let me just clean that off, and I'm just going to get the sentiment out now, and we'll stamp that in. Oh, maybe I should stamp that in Pretty Peacock, or should I do it in? I'm gonna stick with. Or maybe I should do it in Petunia Pop. What do you think? Oh, Sandra, I just caught up with your comment about the embossing. Yeah, it'll probably show up a bit better, eh? Okay, so let's go with, I'm going to go with the Blackberry Bliss anyways. I think the Petunia Pop might be a bit light, but you know, you experiment, right? And you see what works. And I've stamped other stuff when making this card, and I did a few different iterations before I was happy. Oh, you say Pretty Peacock, right? I said, let me just see if I can find that. I didn't pull that out. And you know Murphy's Law says that you won't be able to find it because that's you can't find it when you're looking for it. Let me just see if I can find my Pretty Peacock. And I am having trouble finding it. Oh, I have it. I have it. I have it. Yay. All right. So where did my stamps go? Let's find the sentiment. Okay. So if you don't know what I'm doing, I put my stamp down on the table so that it doesn't wiggle and it doesn't get twisted when I go to put it on my stamp block. And let's ink this up, okay? And we'll press straight down and up. And I'm just trying to make sure it looks straight. Ooh, look at that. I love that, how crisp that one looks. Good call. Okay, so now I'm going to adhere this to my crushed curry, and we'll put some ribbon around that to give it some texture. And now, as I'm putting this down, I'm thinking maybe I should have stamped in crushed curry, but you know what? It's so faint. It's really not a lot to see. Like it doesn't, it's not like you look at it and say, oh, that doesn't match. It's close enough, and it's just a subtle touch. So I think I can get away with it. But, you know, you could have used, I think I could have used crushed curry there too. I see another comment about hoarding DSP. Okay, so this is going to fit right here, okay? But before I do that, I am going to put on some ribbon, and I have a Pretty Peacock with Old Olive. Now, there's no Old Olive in this paper, but it is close enough. Like I said, you can get away with these, you know, just slight differences in color when it's only just a little bit here and there. But I love the Pretty Peacock ribbon. So I'm just going to cut enough, and I'm going to wrap it around to like this, okay? And I just need to kind of guesstimate how much ribbon I need. So I'm going to cut off there. Yeah, I really love this color combination. It's so pretty, and I haven't used it much, but it works so well with this particular DSP. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap it around and tie it. I'm going to tie it just slightly under there because of this gap here in the sentiment. I think it just kind of balances it out. Okay, so I'm just going to tie it. Whoops, I'm pulling a little too hard. And then I can, because it's not glued down or anything, I can just shift the knot over when I'm done. I'm going to use my reverse tweezers to hold this, I think. Hang on a sec. So these are reverse tweezers. They want to stay shut instead of opening, and that holds my knot there while I tie the second bit. There we go. Okay. So that, actually I tied it a bit tight. Can you see it's pulling? I tied it a little bit too tight. I am going to release that, and this is reality crafting at its finest, isn't it? Let's see. I need to release it a little bit more and possibly retie that top piece, that top part of the knot. Okay, so that, okay, that's better. Not pulling so much. Okay, great. So actually I want to shift it over, so I'm just gonna, whoops. I'm just pull it over a little bit. I don't recall having this kind of problem when I was playing around with it before. But that is reality crafting for you. I think because this ribbon is like, you can see it's more transparent. It was probably more easily manipulated. Whereas this one is a thicker ribbon, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this over. I may have to just, oh, you know what, I'm just going to, there we go. All right, too much. Just a little bit. There we go. And I will trim it down. Okay. So I'm going to turn this, yeah, I think I like this side better of the ribbon. Okay, so let's trim this. And I'll put some adhesive on the back. So we're going to adhere the entire back down, okay? So I'm actually going to use some tear and tape this time. I'm going to put it right over that to keep it in place. Okay. You can glue it or tape it. It doesn't, I don't think it makes a difference. The, I think I glued this one, so. When I'm trying to lift the backing off, if I find that the sticky stuff is coming with it, I just kind of press harder with my nail to make sure the adhesive is more attached to the paper, and then it makes it easier to lift up the backing. Okay, So this is just going to go centered on the front here. And I'm so happy that my flower is visible. There we go. Look at that. Doesn't that look great? All right, so the last thing is this panel and then the back that needs to be attached. So I'm just going to put it right on top of a Pretty Peacock because I could not choose a color that I was happy with for the back. Like I didn't want another contrasting color, so I chose this time just to use the same. Okay, let's stamp this. So I did stamp off a little bit. Let's put this behind. Okay, let's get a block and I'll get the Dainty Delight out. And I used this stamp. And this block is a little bit small, but it fits diagonally, which is fine. Okay. I need my black Memento ink. I'm just going to ink this up. And I'm going to stamp just into the corner here. Okay. And I'm going to stamp the Pretty Peacock sentiment. Let me just remove this one and I'm going to get the other sentiment. The best is yet to come. Okay, so this one, because I can't see through to see exactly where the sentiment is on the back when I'm stamping, what I do is I'm going to line it up so that if I align the bottom edge of my block, then I know it'll be straight. Okay, so I just need to be sure that when I stamp this card, that it's going to be covered by my middle piece here, the pop-out section. Okay, so I want to stamp it right around there. It's pretty much center. I think that looks good. So let's just double check before I glue it down. Yeah, see, it's covered. Okay, so let's put this away. And I'm going to use my blends markers to color in my flowers and my leaves. And again, I'm just using colors that's in the DSP. So, although that's not true. This is a mix of like Mossy Meadow, and I forget what other color, but the old olive is in the ribbon, and it's very close to this color set. And I'm going to use Fresh Freesia, which is kind of like a lighter version of the Petunia Pop, because I don't have the Petunia Pop color, markers. So I still think that it looks good together. So I'm just going to go ahead and color these in. I don't think I'm going to add any shading. They're pretty small leaves, right? So this is the dark. I might use the light actually. Maybe I'll get the light one out. That's pretty dark. There we go. I think the longest time I spent was just choosing the colors of the cardstock to go with the DSP, but really I'm working with whatever colors are in the DSP and I'm choosing from there. So that already kind of helps to narrow down my choices. That's the best part about using all the coordinating colors from Stampin' Up. That takes half the work out of it, a lot of the work out of it actually. Well, I'm just gonna add a little bit more green there, and then we'll go in with like, I'm gonna just use the light Fresh Freesia. I think I can add a little bit of shading to this flower because it's got a little bit more real estate to work with. You can go back and do that. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of dark and just add it where the lines are. That's, I think somebody else referred to it as the color me here lines. You use the artwork to guide where you put your shading. So now I'm just going to blend it a little bit more with the light. And that's it. So that is all. Let's adhere that to the inside of our card. I hope I've inspired you to use your stash. Like, there's lots of things, artwork that that coordinates with previous artwork that from retired products, because you know, it's a very similar style because of the artists that they have at Stampin' Up. So it makes it easy to coordinate sometimes with the retired stuff. Okay, let's put some glue on the back of this. Actually, maybe I'll just use tear and tape. I won't get glue all over my fingers then, because I have to handle this more because of the folded piece, the accordion piece. But I think, you know, most of you who have seen me put together cards before, I like to mix what I have in my stash with new stuff. So that hopefully I will get through using some stash and, you know, use it so that it's not forgotten. Okay, so I'm just going to center it on my back piece here, my matting piece, and I think it looks good. And that is today's card. Let me show you. Okay, so there's no contrasting piece like there is this card, but I think it looks good that way. I could not think of a color that would look good behind here. I think that I'm happy with just the Pretty Peacock. Okay, so opens like that. And I will add one more piece of cardstock there just for writing on. And here's the yesterday's card that I posted. And you can just see, I think you can just see the embossing here. I think it just adds a little bit of touch, but it's pretty subtle. And if you don't have the cut and emboss machine, you don't have that folder, no problem. Just use a plain, just a regular square piece of cardstock, and that's totally fine too. So not hard at all. I hope you enjoyed that fun fold, and I know that I am going to probably pull out some Christmas paper and make some Christmas cards with this, but you know, use your stash, you know, combine your sets and make something new and beautiful with what you have, and something new, and have fun with it. So have a great day, everybody. Happy crafting, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.